Academia should be a place for interrogating new ideas. But what about provably false ideas, like the notion that Israel is responsible for 9/11 and ISIS? This university seems to have had second thoughts. The publicly funded University of Lethbridge suspended Professor Anthony Hall after he suggested that Israel was responsible for Islamic terrorism. But the school has now reinstated him. In an article for his website, Hall says the real culprits behind the 9/11 attacks were not a group of Islamic jihadists acting alone out of no other motivation than religious zealotry. Rather, the dominant group directing the 9/11 false flag event was composed primarily of Israel First neoconservatives who sought to demonize Muslims. The article is called 9/11 and the Zionist Question, a question which Hall notes is a contemporary extension of what Karl Marx and others used to refer to frequently in European literature as the Jewish question. Karl Marx and others. It's a bit odd that Hall leaves out the most well-known promulgator of the Jewish question, Adolf Hitler. Anyway, if you're going to blame Israel in 9/11 and absolve radical Islam, you might as well do the same with something just as colossal while you're at it, namely ISIS.
Islamic State is a proxy army. It is sponsored, funded, armed, especially by Saudi Arabia, which is very closely connected to Israel.
Hall repeatedly uses the term Islamophobia to cast genuine concern and criticism of Islamic extremists as irrational backlash against a marginalized group. What's really curious, though, is that just a few months before the professor's nearly 17,000-word screed, the UK government official who popularized the term Islamophobia distanced himself from it, stating, "For a long time, I too thought that Europe's Muslims would become like previous waves of migrants, gradually abandoning their ancestral ways, wearing their religious and cultural baggage lightly, and gradually blending into Britain's diverse identity landscape. I should have known better." Now, Hall has tried to frame his predicament as a matter of academic freedom. But there's a difference between presenting well-sourced opposing opinions on issues and peddling unsubstantiated hogwash to people who are at the very time in their lives when their minds are most malleable. There's nothing really academic about lying, particularly if there's any truth to this review, which implies that the professor is shutting down student disagreement with his baddie views. Accountability is also an issue when taxpayer dollars are at stake. Joshua Blakeney, a graduate student at Hall's, received a $7,714 scholarship essentially to study 9/11 conspiracy theories. Apparently, the ongoing financial commitment of the province of Alberta made this possible. I wonder how many of Alberta's citizens would agree with this scholarly use of their funds. The University of Lethbridge paid Hall during at least part of his suspension and reinstated him entirely just last week. The school said it would address the professor's activities in the context of the faculty handbook, but did not explain how. Perhaps saying and doing things with little to no reasoning is endemic at Lethbridge. Campus Unmasked asked the school what it believed constituted academic freedom, as well as some questions regarding Hall's tenure, but the university did not elaborate, citing legal implications. But what about scholarly implications of reinstating the professor? Taxpayers are waking up to the fact that they are funding indoctrination mills, and colleges' opportunities to operate in the shadows are becoming slimmer and slimmer. For Campus Unmasked, I'm Rob Shimshock.